notifications on. Facebook fan page, all capital letters, SCEN. Twitter, SCEN_THE. And don't forget to follow the Stoppage Time FC Twitter, THE.SCEN for Instagram. We got Joe, we got Zach, we got Jamaldo behind the scenes. We might try to bring him on camera here a little bit later in the show. Fellas, we're going to talk about what's going on in England, the rest of Europe, Champions League back in action. And then we're going to get into know your role. What is a derby? What the hell is a derby? So we're going to talk about that. But I'm going to start with, we got to start with the winners for today. So we'll go with not save the best for last. We'll save the best for first. Zach, anything interesting happening in the world of Chelsea Football Club?
Death, taxes, Olivier Giroud, the man, the myth, the legend, one of the, we talk about highlight goals that man continues to produce. You can just go ahead and tag this one onto the highlight reel. Beautiful, beautiful bicycle kick. On Joe and I were talking about this, a goal that was very, very similar to what Rodri scored, right? I think it was Rodri.
Yeah, he recovered the ball and then gave the assist to the next guy. But
yeah,
similar, very, very similar situation.
On a ball that was played directly from the Atletico Madrid defender, so therefore nullifying the offsides position that Giroud was in, and he just made Oblak look silly. And I talked about how Chelsea was producing points against lesser opponents, and that this was the start of the true test, the run of fixtures that was going to see, who was Chelsea for real? Was Tuchel really, the right hire? And if you watch today's match, it was a clear cut. Like it was not close. The scoreline was close, but Chelsea dominated that game. And without sounding like a parrot, I'm pretty sure I brought up the fact that them not playing in Spain was going to be a big deal, and I was told that no, that's not going to be a big deal because they don't have a chance anyway. Well,
not so fast, my friend.
I think Mr. Giroud had something to say about that.
First of all, Olivier Giroud has one of the most unique careers that you will ever find in the sport. He has never been considered the best of his generation, the best of his era, or even like the best in a particular season. But he comes through with, it's either a highlight reel goal that you're like, wow, or it's 88th minute tie match. We need a goal to break the tie. He's almost like Robert Horry of football. Not a Hall of Famer, but when a big goal or a spectacular goal needs to be made, Big Giroud is right there for it.
He's killing Spanish teams. He had the hat trick against Sevilla in the group stages. He had the 91st minute winner against Rennes in the group stages. Now he has this absurd bicycle kick. Like, all the man does is just put quality highlight reel goals in the back of the net. And I know everybody loves Benzema. He is the French striker of choice, but man, give me Giroud every day.
And Atletico's $140 million youngster that they spent all that money for attempted almost the exact same one earlier in the game that we were talking about and sent it sailing way over the goal. And Mr. Old Reliable shows him how it's done later on in the game. Man, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, and Atletico is in trouble going in the leg too, because the one thing about Atletico that we've seen in these European competitions is they struggle to score. Like they are very much 1-0, 1-1, maybe 2-1 on a good day. But Chelsea in leg two, I like their chances in leg two because I don't. Atletico just in these situations they play tight almost.
Mm-hmm.
They play really tight, really conservative, and now they're going to have to come out of that in leg two. And Chelsea could, Chelsea, I could see them beating them 2-0 in leg two just because of how open Atletico is going to have to play in leg two, and that's not really their thing.
They won't be able to play that 6-2-2 formation that they had today.
Very Mourinho-esque setup there that they had going on. A lot of parallels the way Simeone has been setting up his team, and it's the same thing as Tottenham. They both teams have the attacking talent to play more expansive football, but that's not their style. I think that you hit the nail on the head with Atletico, because their goal is always to get that first goal and then just hold on to that lead because they know that their defense is going to handle business. So going on into that second leg where they're going to have to be more on the front foot and everything, it's not their preferred style, even though they have a lot of guys up front that can attack and are good at it. It's just not the philosophy of their very boisterous manager.
I think that the storyline for leg two is going to be who's playing and who's not. If Mount, I'm hearing that Chelsea is going to appeal his yellow card that he got in the first minute because he didn't even touch the guy, which was his second yellow. So he technically should miss the next match. If he doesn't win his appeal, both he and Jorginho are out for the second leg, which hurts. Now, that being said, you replace Jorginho with N'Golo Kante, and I mean, is that really a bad thing?
That's not a bad thing, no.
But Mason Mount has been somewhat of a talisman for Chelsea in their momentum, their drive. Mason kind of has this chip on his shoulder where he takes his own success and chooses to kind of use that as his benchmark for a successful day. And it's infectious and it's rubbing off on the rest of the players. And then you have on the Atletico side, they were hit bad by injuries. They didn't have Jimenez, who is probably one of the best center backs in the game. Very, very underrated. Kieran Trippier is still suspended by the FA. That ends next week. So he will be back for leg two. And then they had two other injuries. Versalco, who is another defender for them, and I think Correa. They have another Correa who couldn't get a negative COVID test, so he was out. So I think that's going to be the storyline for leg two.
Real quick, Zach, you hit on something that we probably haven't mentioned yet in our Know Your Role segments. Can you explain to the folks what it means with the yellow cards and why getting two would put you out for the next match?
Yeah, so good point there, Joe. Yellow card accumulation is basically what they call this, and essentially, if you accumulate so many cards, yellow cards in a given period of time, you essentially get suspended because they're saying that you are, on the bad boy list and you can't seem to stay out of the bookings. So they will just make sure you miss the next match. I think it's 5 cards. I think it's 5 yellows over a certain.
Yeah.
Don't quote me. It's like 5 cards over a certain number of games.
Right. That's close enough.
But it's essentially like you're receiving 2 yellow cards in a game. They often refer to 2 yellows in a game as a soft red. Match card accumulation is also considered kind of like a soft red. You don't get suspended for 2 games. You only get suspended for the next game. So that'll be huge. And I do know that Chelsea will probably appeal Mount's yellow card in this match.
Now tomorrow, as we're taping this, Man City enters kind of pulling up the rear here on the Champions League. Joe, talk about we're going to talk about this here shortly. Man City with a very comfortable league in the Premier League. So now it's to the Champions League. This is kind of the trophy that's eluded you all. How you feel about leg one of this week?
They are continuing their winning ways. We're up to 18 straight in all competitions and continuing to play stellar defense, which has been the calling card of this current run of form. The great news is that Kevin De Bruyne is back. He got some minutes in over the weekend in the Premier League, and Aguero has been on the bench the last 2 games. He is likely going to feature at some point. Pep has treating him with abundance of caution since every time he seemed to come back this year, would try to get a few minutes in, something else pops up. So we are pretty much at full strength. There aren't really any guys that we're really concerned with as far as injuries go. So they got the nice run of form, and they're also getting 2 of their absolute best players back. And one of them at a position that we thought was going to be a problem and was a problem at the beginning of the year, but they have worked out their issues up front, in front of goal, and have found other ways of scoring besides having a definitive out-and-out striker up front. They've been opening up the formations a bit, and Pep has figured it out. So I'm very confident in going into tomorrow's game with a tiniest little bit of like, what if typical City pops up and something crazy happens, because that kind of stuff tends to always happen. 1 with Man City, and 2 with all of my sports teams, regardless of sport, something crazy always seems to happen. So I'm very, very confident because Mönchengladbach is not in the best run of form, and we just are on fire on all cylinders. And usually when everything seems perfect in the world of Manchester City, Jerm, if you're listening, that's when things tend to go a little wrong. So be confident, but
Caution.
Have a little bit of cautiousness in the back of your mind.
Who's Joe? Joe, let me ask you this: who's the odd man out in that midfield now that KDB's back? you don't sit Ilkay, right? Like, I mean, the man is a goal scoring machine.
Ilkay is in. KDB probably starts, and Rodri probably starts, and then you start looking up. It's him or Fernandinho in that holding midfield role, and Rodri is superior to Fernandinho right now. So then you look at Phil and Bernardo. Where do you put those guys? And both of them are capable of playing on the wing. I think both of their best positions are in more a central role. So I think you put either Phil or Bernardo at a wide position opposite of Raheem Sterling, and then, or both of them, and then put Raheem in the front of the goal and just play that false 9 and have all 3 of them rotating across the front. And that seems to have been working well. Phil has played a striker role as well. So I think you just try to get your best guys out there and put the guys who are in the best form on the pitch at the same time and hope for the best.
That was what I was going to say. And much like City, Chelsea has had a very similar issue with their attacking front. And they've seen a lot of success recently with Mason Mount actually playing that false 9 role. So if I were Pep, I would probably put Phil in that false 9 role, keep Raheem and Bernardo out wide. And because to me, Raheem's so much better when he's able to cut in from out wide than playing that false 9, kind
Absolutely.
of role, or even as a forward 9, So that was what I would do. And that's kind of what I wanted to see if you guys would have that same mentality that I see Tuchel has done with Mason Mount.
Yeah, Phil has done well wherever they've put him. He's played wing, he's played false 9s, he's played in the center of the park too. So, but he's been playing really well. As on top of what him and Gundogan and Bernardo Silva have been, all 3 playing extremely well, and been on top of Ruben Diaz, who's been getting a lot of the applause from pundits and everything. Those 3 have been really setting the tone for in the midfield, and that's where you win games in soccer. So,
John Stones for MVP.
Hey.
Stones. Hey.
I was told that as well, that Mr. Stones was still wasn't that good, even though he's been playing extremely well. So here we are.
So here we are. And here I am. So let me talk about the real big match of the week. The NIT of Europe, aka the Europa League. You see it on the screen, Europa or bust. And my season is on the line. The reason I don't talk about my football club much on this show is because there's really not much to talk about. Right? We are 10th in the Prem, dead mid-table. Like we are as mid-table can be. We are out of the FA Cup. We are out of the Carabao Cup. So our whole entire season rides on the Europa League, the NIT of Europe. We are 1-1. Thankfully, we have the away goal versus Benfica. I don't know why they have away goals when nobody has fans in the stands and teams are playing neutral site. A whole nother conversation. I'm glad we have it. So so Thursday, Big Shots football season could end on Thursday because we are probably not catching. We have about 0.1 chance of catching anybody for top 4. We will probably not catch anybody for Europa League. So
Yeah, you gotta catch. Well, I mean, Chelsea's in 5th right now.
We're not catching.
I mean, the most realistic names are going to be, Chelsea, Tottenham, West Ham.
They're sitting at 4th right now.
Let's say this: City is gonna finish. Is gonna win the league. I'm not trying to be on some jinx stuff, but City's gonna win the league. Manchester City or Leicester will probably flip-flop 2 and 3 the rest of the year, and then you've got Chelsea at 4. We're not better than Chelsea, clearly. We're not better than Liverpool. Even a hurt Liverpool, we're not better than them. And we're not better than West Ham. Like we are, like Arsenal are what they are. Like that 10th in the league, like that's legitimate. That's a legitimate 10th. Like that's not fake 10th. So
you are what your record says you are.
Oh, absolutely. When you lose, when you have more losses than wins, that's you. So, yeah, by Thursday afternoon, I could be all into college basketball and March Madness preparation because it could be dead by Thursday afternoon.
You could just sign your fan free agency card and move across the city in London into blue, and we can just call it a day.
I'm not signing the fan free agency card yet, but
yet.
Yeah,
we heard a yet there. Hold on now.
It's yet because I watched the match versus Man City. Was I expecting us to win? No. But let's have a go at it. Let's have a go at it. We're gonna lose anyway.
So you might as well.
Let's have a go at it. And
didn't City score in like the 4th minute and then
second?
Second.
And then that was it.
80 seconds in. And then the rest of the last 89 minutes, we were just out there for cardio and fell
Run around.
Just ran around for 89.
Chasing the ball pretty much the whole time.
So I'm almost in a morbid sort of way curious to see what would happen if we were to not
blow the whole thing up.
What's the decision process there with the board at that point?
To me, as I was not a Unai Emery fan, and Wenger had to go at some point. But to be out of every cup competition, no hope in Europe, and 10th in the league, well, somebody got to go.
That's not a good look, especially because Arsenal's a traditional powerhouse in the Premier
Somebody
League.
Has to go.
They can't be sitting mid-table. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
If a club legend like Frank isn't safe at Chelsea, we know Arteta's not any safer in Arsenal.
He can't be, and he shouldn't be. So Next
Do you think it was too early for him
Yes.
to take on a full-time job like that at a big club without any full-time head coach experience?
He would have been better off. I think it was too early, but in a weird way, he would have been better off being the first manager after Wenger than being the manager after Unai. Because I think if he would have been the first manager after Wenger, the fans would have given him. He would have been given 2 years because they'd be like, "Hey, you're replacing a legend. You're turning over the team." He would have been given that. He came in. He wasn't ready when he came in, and he came into a situation that was worse than when Wenger left it. Emery left it worse than what he left. So, but I just think if you're out of every competition and 10th in the league,
Some kind of change has to be made.
and you're right, and you can't fire players.
Nope.
So you'll be very interesting to see what happens. So this show could be really interesting next Tuesday, depending on what happens this week.
Ronnie may just write it off and not show up. He just may be done.
Next Tuesday, if you want to see a black screen with just my name,
you know the results.
Really quick, fellas, let's kind of go around Europe before we get into Know Your Role and then close the show out. Joe, some kind of semi-interesting things happen. We talked about the Premier League being pretty much done, but the rest of Europe, not so much. What's going on in the rest of Europe?
Yeah, over in Italy, there's a 4-point gap between 1 and 2. The two Milan clubs, Inter and AC, are both on 23 matches played. Inter's got 53 points and AC's got 49, so they're still close. That is still to be determined. Juventus is a game off pace. They got 22 games played and that sit at 45. So if they win their game in hand, they're sitting at 48 points. So if that happens, that's a 5-point gap between 1, 2, and 3. So Serie A is still up for grabs. Bundesliga, surprisingly, Leipzig is still holding form and pushing Bayern a little bit. They're only 2 points off pace. After that, the drop off to Wolfsburg is pretty far. They're at 42 points. So that one is pretty much a 2-horse leg. However, we kind of know what tends to happen in Germany. So the cream rises to the top in that league.
No, don't do it.
I said what I said.
Don't do it.
I said what I said.
How far off is Dortmund?
How far off is Dortmund for our resident Dortmund fan, Mr. Jerry? They are sitting at 6, so they are a game out of Europa positioning and are sitting on 36 points. So they are 13 off of the pace for first. They are only a point off of Leverkusen, who is sitting in their Europa League spot, and they are 6 points from Frankfurt, who is sitting in the last Champions League spot.
I'll tell you what, Zach, you mentioned this in the group. You probably mentioned on here. Dortmund missing the Champions League would be an absolute disaster for them.
Severe repercussions for that team if that happens, because that's a lot of money they're not going to have.
Europa's not enough.
So it's not.
They got to, they need the money from the Champions League. Otherwise, Reina, Sancho, Haaland, those 3 are for sure gone this summer. Not waiting till they get a little bit more. They are gone this summer, no question.
They might be able to get away with selling some of their other French players and keeping one of those 3. Most likely going to be Reina because he's going to be the cheapest of them all. But I don't see any world where Haaland isn't gone this summer and Sancho isn't gone this summer. I think Sancho needs to move to Bayern because Joe and I talked. Germany is a good fit for Sancho. It's a good fit for his game. And Haaland, as Mino Raiola had said today, there are 10 clubs in the world that can afford Erling Haaland. 4 of them reside in the Premier League.
I'm honestly surprised it's that many.
Yeah.
Of 10?
Yeah.
No, like that there's 10.
I'm
Yeah,
surprised
I
at
mean,
this team.
I was trying to run through them real quick. Obviously the prem is pretty easy to pick. You got City, Liverpool, and Liverpool's iffy to me.
Yeah, that's iffy.
Chelsea and United. Those are the four that can afford him. Then you have Barca, Real. That's 5 and 6. Madrid Atletico can. I mean, they just shelled out 153 million for João Felix. So I doubt that. And I didn't know this until they said it today, but that's the third highest transfer ever.
All time.
Ever.
Oh yeah, they broke the bank for
Jesus.
for João Felix.
So that gives you 6, maybe 7 with Atletico. Bayern obviously can afford him. Not that they would, but they can. That gives you 8. And then you have Juve, and then what? Maybe one of the Milan clubs.
Did you say PSG?
PSG.
Already?
Okay, so there you go. There's PSG.
Probably. Yeah, Dortmund has to find a way to get in the Champions League. Have to, because if they don't, for old people, we remember the blue light, especially Kmart. The blue light, well, in Dortmund's case, it would be a yellow light. The yellow light goes off if they don't make the Champions League. It's a fire sale.
Everything must go.
Everything
No
everything
offer refused.
Everything must go. Joe, real quick, what's going on in Spain before we get to know your role?
Atletico is still got a game in hand on Real Madrid. Madrid's played 24 games. Atletico's got 23, but the gap has closed. Madrid has dropped some points in the last 5. It's 55 for Atletico, 52 for Madrid. Sevilla is now in 3rd. They have 48 points, and Barca is in 4th place with 47 points. And then Real Sociedad is in 5th. They're farther off the pace. So it's a 4-team race. The same 4 that are in the Champions League now are probably going to finish that way as well. And then last one in France, that's the other big league. Lille is, as I say it.
Yep.
Hey, there you go. First try. 58 points in first. Lyon are in second with 55, and PSG is at 54. AS Monaco is right there too. They have 52 points. So there's that. Surprisingly, also PSG usually runs away with it, but that is a 4-team race currently set up, and they're all on the same number of matches played. So go ahead.
PSG are worse since Tuchel has left.
Yeah, you gotta wonder, man. If PSG doesn't win that league, which they do, the PSG Invitational, boy, could Poch be in trouble?
I think he's okay this year, but then if a repeat happens, for sure.
I guess a lot will depend on how they do in the Champions League, how deep of a run they can make. If they fuck around and end up getting kiboshed early, and then don't win the league,
they might be looking at that for sure. So that's the big 5. We got England, Italy, Germany, Spain, and France. Quick coverage of where the standings are.
MLS is coming back soon, so we got that going for us. I know everyone's excited about that.
We're going to do some MLS. I think when the MLS comes back, we are going to do some MLS. We're gonna cover the stateside for the people.
We got to cover Inter Miami.
Inter Miami, shout out David Beckham, bringing back every Premier League player 30 and over, because
as many as he can get his hands on.
That he can get his hands on. All right, so know your role. We always do the educational piece. So you've picked your club. You know how the transfer system works. We've talked about the position. We've talked about how the seasons work. But as Joe and Zach can attest, rivalries are what makes football. And there are matches called Dar-bee matches. So there are two kind of definitions of derbies. Joe and Zach certainly feel free to jump in. You have your first kind, which is like your geographical derby. Like, and that's just essentially two teams that play in the same city. Which is, so for Joe, who would be the derby match for you, Joe?
Manchester United is our main geographical rival for sure.
Sure.
Red versus blue, very small, relatively speaking, city, and their stadiums are less than 10 miles apart. So super close. United is the big brothers that got all the success and all the flashy stars and all the trophies. And Man City are the hardworking on the other side of town, and the blue bloods that fought for everything and never could break through, and have finally seen a turnaround since Sheikh Mansour took over.
Now, Zach, Chelsea obviously based in London. There are thousands of there are
six in the Premier League, right? Right, Zach?
There's 6 Premier League teams to choose from necessarily. So who would you consider Chelsea's derby with having 6 options to choose from?
So historically, honestly, our biggest derby is, now for everybody watching, it sounds like we're saying Derby, like D-A-R-B-Y. It's actually spelled Derby, D-E-R-B-Y, like the Kentucky Derby, but it's a derby. So historically, Chelsea's actual derby game is Fulham. They're the two clubs that are the closest in location. Chelsea, the Stamford Bridge is actually on, I think it's actually called the Fulham Road. You know, as far as location goes, that's going to be our derby game. But I mean, it kind of goes, if we're talking as far as like teams that are in contention, it kind of rotates between Arsenal and Tottenham. I'd say right now it's definitely Tottenham, not from the standpoint that Tottenham deserve it more than Arsenal, because I always get more heated during an Arsenal Chelsea game than I do a Tottenham Chelsea game. But the fact that Jose Mourinho is now as of right now, the manager at Tottenham, and he has history with Chelsea, so that's probably a bigger point of contention for them.
Yeah, for Arsenal, it's Tottenham because it's North London. Like, Tottenham and Arsenal are literally down the street from each other. You can look up videos on YouTube. Tottenham and Arsenal fights. They have to go in separate entrances in the stadium because the fans literally cannot be near each other. It's ugly stuff. Despite the fact that, especially now, neither one of them is that good, it doesn't matter. It's still ugly and heated. And then to Zach's point, and I would agree with him, Chelsea in the last, like when Mourinho stepped into the league, the Chelsea-Arsenal rivalry turned up because that version of Jose was mad disrespectful to Wenger. He had respect for Ferguson, but he and Wenger didn't really vibe at all during Jose's first run through Chelsea.
That just sounds so unlike him. I just can't believe that Jose would be like that to somebody.
Well, I mean, that's easy for us to say because we've watched him over the years. But if you've only seen Jose Mourinho in the last like 3 or 4 years, and you've seen him at United and now Tottenham, he's very, very mild-mannered compared to he's
right. The young Jose was,
that's a whole nother level. That's on the, that dude was a trash talker, like TO level trash talking to dudes and managers. And to Ronnie's point, like that, him and Wenger did not.
No, at all.
They were not friends.
No. That definitely adds to the rivalries too. When there's 2 big name managers at the club at the same time who either like to get a little boisterous or have been there a long time. So Zach, I'm looking at and Ronnie. I'm looking at a site here that's got a list of some of the top derbies out there, and this one is talking about the North London Derby, and this is the first sentence that they have. The North London Derby is played between the two most notable clubs from London, Arsenal and Tottenham. Zach, what do you think about that, bud?
I mean, okay, yeah. Initially, that's gonna rub me the wrong way, but it's not necessarily wrong. You know, I Arsenal for sure. Tottenham, I will argue
I
because
take big issue with that because they have nowhere near this amount of success that you guys have. Arsenal, I understand, but like Tottenham, come on now, you can't say that about them.
Yeah, I don't.
I'll say it for you, so you don't sound like a homer.
I don't care. Fuck Tottenham. Like I don't like anything that has to do with them. I don't like Harry Kane.
Let me tell you, we got so close to like meltdown 2 years ago when we got mauled by Chelsea in the Europa League final. Got absolutely obliterated.
Who
that would have been straight
goal scorer in that game?
Big game OG Giroud. So that happened one day. That was on Thursday. And then Tottenham played in the Champions League final versus Liverpool 2 days later. If Tottenham had beat Liverpool in that final, so that means our biggest rival wins the Champions League, something we've never done. And then we get mauled by another London rival 2 days before.
You'd have burned down the city.
There wouldn't be a stoppage time because I would have went stoppage time or whatever stoppage time looked like then and turned the whole group around.
No.
But so then you've got your geographical derby. So like Liverpool, Everton, Merseyside derby, Merseyside derby, AC Milan, Inter Milan, Milan derby. So you got the geographical derby, and then you have the rivalries. It's not about geography. These are just two clubs that just do not get along, period.
History and quality of play.
Exactly. History, quality of play. Now we're talking about like Liverpool, Manchester United. Who
that's probably the biggest one in England. Even though as a City fan, like I'll take a step back from my fandom on that one for sure. That is still the big rivalry in England. Is Liverpool United for sure.
Liverpool United is bitter. It's contentious. It's big. Quietly, I think, and I don't know if Zach agrees with this. He can let me know because he's obviously a Chelsea fan. Because it doesn't happen that much because it's in Europe, I always felt Chelsea Barcelona had a little bit of something to it.
There's a little bit of bitterness there. And it's I truthfully I really hope the second leg goes well, and then we draw Barca next round. Just that's me personally. Because yeah, it's something that is understated, and especially given the game, you know, and any Chelsea fan that knows when you talk about Chelsea versus Barcelona, and you mentioned the game, it's that was arguably Chelsea's probably best team in the Champions League ever. I know we won, you know, a few years later and against Bayern, but that was, I mean, let's be real, that was kind of a fluke. They didn't really deserve to be there, quote unquote. But yeah, I definitely would agree with you to an extent. It's not, like you said, it's very understated because it doesn't happen nearly as much as some of the others. You know, it's not like Real and Barcelona. They're not geographically super close, but that's another one kind of like Liverpool and Man United that I would say are clubs that hate each other.
Yeah, Madrid-Barcelona is definitely up there. Madrid-Barcelona is one of the most watched matches in the world every year when it happens, whether it happens in a league or a cup. That's pretty big. We're trying to think of some other ones that just kind of off the top of my head. Dortmund, Bayern. is not necessarily a derby, but it's a pretty in Germany. That's probably their biggest. That's probably the match in Germany is Bayern Dortmund. Joe, any others that kind of come to mind?
The one I have, the first one that came to my mind is one that's not even in Europe. It's down in South America. The Super Clásico, Boca Juniors and River Plate.
Yep.
These two teams are in Argentina. They're usually typically the two best teams in Argentina and go head to head. And those people down there hate each other. I'm talking about hate like player haters ball level hate out here. Like shout out to Chappelle Show. Like they can't stand each other. It gets nasty every time they play.
I showed Trav the Copa 90 documentary on Boca versus River Plate.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, and Trav was, our man Trav was, Trav. He was like, "Is this really that?" I'm like, "Yes, Trav.
Yes,
that much."
People die.
Yes, like it's that serious. It is that serious. It's insane to see what goes on down there with that. It's crazy.
You talk about a smaller league, but is in Scotland. You have Rangers versus Celtic, which
the old firm derby is what that one's called. The old
firm, which is religion, it's politics, it's two opposite sides of the city. Is another one that
which is ironic because it's kind of in the news right now. Stevie G is at Rangers and just a dude hasn't lost a game yet, I don't think. They're running away with the Scottish Premier League, and I think Celtic just fired their head coach.
Yeah,
which is not something that I really saw coming. There's another one in Russia, and for the life of me, I cannot think of it. I think it's Spartak Moscow and another Dynamo Kiev, maybe.
That sounds about right.
That's another one that's kind of along the lines of Argentina. It's Russians don't play when it comes to
most things.
Soccer. Yeah.
Most things in general.
Yeah, it's yeah.
You hit the nail on the head with those two teams, by the way. That is the correct one. I just looked it up.
Yeah. I think with people, we talk about derbies. It's not just like we have our rivals here, Lakers, Celtics, Yankees, Red Sox. But there's never the threat of violence.
Very rarely. Very rarely.
We'll go back and forth on Twitter, Facebook groups. Okay. But when there's like the real threat that somebody gets hurt, but nobody's going to Lakers Celtics game thinking somebody's going to get hurt. These derby matches, there is always the threat.
Every time.
I mean, it's not a good thing. And I'm not saying that's good, but it shows you the level of what this is in their countries.
It's a thing where football is a religion, and I don't care what anybody says. I realize it's not an organized religion, but it is. It really is, and that is life or death to a lot of people around the world. That goes for Africa, that goes for Asia, that goes for South America. It doesn't matter. It's the game just hits differently than anything we can imagine here in the States. It's like the Israelis and the Palestinians on a real world global conflict level, and I hate to kind of put it in those contexts because of how awful that is, and that continued conflict between those two, but it does have shades of similarities to it.
It's levels above any rivalry that we have here in the States in any sport. Whatever the most contentious rivalry we have in the States, it's a piece of cake to your lowest level derby inside. It's easy. It's nothing. And so now that you all have your clubs, investigate who your derby is. Who is your rival? Because those match days and those games absolutely have more importance. You know, I say here in America, it doesn't matter what the standings are. In derbies, it truly does matter because the intensity and the passion is through the roof.
Match
Guys,
day madness.
it is truly magic madness. So, guys, before we wrap up, anything we want to leave the people with before we check out?
Zachary, I think probably the same thing. We got a pre-recorded episode 2 of our Blue versus Blue
Absolutely.
coming up. We're gonna be recording that Thursday evening, so we'll hopefully have that posted this weekend at some point. We'll be talking about soccer documentaries, where you can find them, the good ones to watch, how to watch them, why they're important, our favorite ones. We're gonna have a guest star on that one. We already got him lined up, ready to go, because he's been in the lab watching them already, and is becoming our resident documentary
Newly
aficionado.
initiated.
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about all things soccer documentary related to watch, because we all got time on our hands usually with being in the house still and everything. So we'll tell you where to find them, the good ones to start off with, all the good things about some soccer documentaries.
Absolutely. So we definitely looking forward to that. So remember, if you're watching the YouTube, subscribe, notifications on, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, the Facebook fan page. And if you're on Facebook, Stoppage Time FC is the Facebook group. Come join us. It's open, it's public, newly initiated, or expert level, whatever your level is, we're there for you. Big Shot, Joe, Zach, Jamaldo behind the scenes. This is